This content is not affiliated with, endorsed, sponsored, or specifically approved by Supercell.
Brawl Stars, a game known to every school student, teenager, and even child. This game attracted a huge community to Supercell and still remains one of the most popular ones. Recently, I decided to challenge myself and try to recreate something similar, a small version of Brawl Stars made from scratch. We can't modify the original game or add our own characters, we simply don't have the right to do that. So, since we can't change the game the way we want, why not create our own fan-made clone? Yes, a simple clone. Watch until the end of the video to see what we've managed to create. Remember, this is only an early version. If you subscribe, like the video and support me, I'll be able to clone more games for you. Alright, then, let's begin. Open up Unity and let's create a new project. So, I started thinking, how can I recreate the whole game, including all events and characters? Obviously, making the entire thing is impossible, so I decided to focus on just one event and build a simple gameplay version of it. So, which event should I choose in Brawl Stars? There are lots. Brawl Ball, Showdown, Knockout, Gem Grab, and many more. After some thought, I decided to go with Knockout. In this mod, two teams fight each other. The goal is to eliminate all enemies. The game continues until one team wins, and if all your fighters lose their lives, your team is defeated. Once I figured out what to make, I immediately got to work. The first thing I did was import a mob model into the scene. Finding one wasn't easy. Of course, I didn't build every model from scratch since there are tons of free assets online, game objects, skins, characters, and much more. Opening Unity, I began working on the map. The question was, how should I properly place all the objects? I searched through lots of references and finally found one that perfectly fit my map, so I decided to follow it when designing the terrain and placing objects. As you probably know, in games, static objects are placed very precisely and tightly together. If I placed something incorrectly, it would look off. To avoid that, I used grid snapping. By enabling it, I could easily and accurately align objects in the game without worrying about crooked placements. And here is the result, a map that looks very similar to those in Brawl Stars. Awesome, now we need to think about interaction with this map. For that, we need the main character. After thinking for a while, I decided to go with Colt. He's the most optical choice. He can shoot, move around, and looks dynamic. I found his 3D model on Sketchfab, and what's even better, it already included all the necessary animations. Wow, that's exactly what I needed. Okay, I imported him into the scene. Since the game is planned for both PC and Android, I had to create a Brawl Stars style interface. That wasn't easy. I ended up using Photoshop to crop and adjust AI elements I found online. Now that we have everything ready, it's time for programming. I know, my friends, that word might sound scary, but programming is the essential step that brings the character to life. I won't go into too much detail explaining every line of code, that would be boring, but I'll give you a general idea of what each part does. Let's start with the main character. I wrote the control code for him. This turned out to be quite simple. I added animation, positioned the UI elements that show the character's health and other parameters, and slightly reduced the movement speed. So we got this code. Let me explain what and how it works. First, the start method initializes the animator components. In the update method, the health bar is updated using the line where the fill amount value is set depending on the character's current health. Then there is a platform check using a condition. If the game is running on Android, the input for movement is taken from the joystick, otherwise the start input from the keyboard or gamepad is used. The next check determines if the character is alive. If his health drops to 0 or lower, the die method def is called. To create the character's direction of movement, a vector is used, which is based on the horizontal and vertical input values. If the character needs to move and the direction vector is not 0, the character turns in the direction of movement and moves by a corresponding distance per frame. This is accompanied by the activation of the walking animation. If the character is not moving, the walking animation is disabled. The die method is called when the character's health drops to 0. At this moment, a splat object is created at the character's def location, since the character himself is disabled using GameObject points that active false. The created splat object is automatically destroyed after 3 seconds. Good, now if you run the game, we see this. During the game development, I stumbled upon a shader that's capable of giving our game a cartoon aesthetic. Having downloaded it, I decided to apply it to all materials. First, I started with the character, and then I added the shader to all objects on the scene. In the end, the game acquired a beautiful cartoon effect, and now it visually truly resembles Brawl Stars. Also, for the camera to follow the character, I wrote simple but smooth code that ensures its movement, similar to how it's implemented in Brawl Stars. We see the objects that the camera will follow, as well as its characteristics for tracking the character. At the start, we set the initial camera position using the character's position fields, and also turn the camera so that it looks towards him. For this, we subtract the camera's position vector from the character's position vector. This is the direction the camera needs to be turned in. Next, in the update method, which is called every frame, we determine what position the camera should be in relative to the character, and change it, using the return speed and the calculated vector of the required position. Now he can run around, but he still can't shoot. Let's do this. First, I tried to create a simple shooting effect, and only then adjust it to code's real mechanics. But just look at these blunders and what I was getting when I tried to implement this mechanic. Yes, after many attempts, I finally managed to create something similar to a shooting effect. After implementing the shooting effect, I needed to create a crosshair for the character so that he could shoot in any direction. Right now, Colt rotates his entire body towards the side we are shooting at, but in Brawl Stars it works differently. I researched everything possible about Colt's shooting, and in the end, I understood the following. When we run and shoot, only the upper part of Colt's body rotates in the direction we point with the joystick, and then it returns to its original position after the shooting is finished. But if standing still, Colt rotates his entire body. It sounds simple, but in practice it turned out to be quite difficult. I had to download a package called Animation Rigging, which allowed me to rotate individual bones even during animation playback. Then I modified the bullet, adding a trail effect to it to achieve this visual result, and slightly change its color. In the end, we got approximately such a script, and yes, for the shooting to look more beautiful, I searched the internet for particle effect assets, and found particles for def and shooting. So the final version of the shooting turned out great. Now let's implement the grass effect so that it becomes slightly transparent when we get closer to it. For this, I wrote a script related to the grass and added a box collider with triggers to the grass. This allowed me to successfully implement the desired effect. This part turned out to be quite simple. Now we can shoot, and all the main control mechanics are implemented. The next step is to create enemies and allies, like in the knockout mode. I'll have to deal with artificial intelligence in Unity again, but I hope this time it will be easier. This is approximately how I imagined artificial intelligence.
Enemy spotted.
What does artificial intelligence code consist of? Artificial intelligence consists of states, and our task is to set the conditions under which the transition from one state to another occurs. What did I start with? First, I set up navigation, nav mesh. Then I wrote a simple patrolling script. The algorithm of this system works as follows. We create a point at a certain distance from the character, and this distance is chosen randomly. The artificial intelligence moves to this point, and if it reaches it, a new one is created. If the artificial intelligence doesn't reach the point within 4 or 10 seconds, the point is generated again. We show this point on the nav mesh, and the artificial intelligence independently determines the route and follows the target. In addition, we have the chase, pursuit, and idle, waiting states. I include the idle state randomly during patrolling through certain time intervals, but the chase state is activated only when the artificial intelligence notices an enemy. For this, I implemented a vision system for the artificial intelligence. Each AI sees the world in its own way. If it detects an enemy, it independently decides whether to shoot or not, depending on the current health level. If the health is low, the artificial intelligence will try to run away, and otherwise it will engage in combat. This is how I got the artificial intelligence system. Even if they are dumb, they know how to shoot. Also, so that the interface doesn't look empty, I added a few elements to the UI and implemented a system for determining victory or defeat. As a result, we managed to create a version of Brawl Stars, even if on a minimal scale, but we still succeeded. This, of course, is not the final version of the game yet. If you want me to continue development and improve this project, like, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what else can be added to this game. Your ideas and support will help make it better. It was NK Game Developer. See you soon. Good luck.